Hi guys, so we're going to teach you guys some basic information about China, what to expect on your trip to China. This is a basic overview workshop for you guys. We're going to highlight some things that could be essential. My name is Kia McKelvin.
I'm Cameron Clark.
And I'm Jawan Turner.
And we're going to give Jawan the floor right now. He's going to teach you about leadership and culture.
So when heading over to China, it's important to understand, the leadership styles and the culture styles, just to see where you would fit in or how you might fit in, or kind of how some of their styles and culture may contribute back to maybe where you're from, or how you could take some of the things they use and they believe in and implement it into your area. And before I get started, I just want to kill all the negativity about maybe how China doesn't allow you to be yourself, or they're strict over there, or any of the negative perception we might have of China. I just want us to be open-minded throughout this whole presentation and try to understand their way of living and their way of leading. And understanding their way of leading, one must understand what they expect from their leaders. And some of the things they expect from their leaders is, one is understanding face. And what that means is basically understanding that respect, dignity, and your reputation is key when out in China. So leaders, when in a business setting or during a business meeting, whenever someone is trying to is being seen as somewhat of a show-off, which can be when they feel like their idea is better than the group's, or whenever someone is seen going against the grain, that is sometimes seen as trying to, destroy the face. And as a leader, you need to nip that in the bud. You need to understand that no one is above the group, and basically the face of the group is most important. It's a we theme over a me theme. Another key factor or element in being a leader in China is understanding the Confucian concept of harmony. And basically what that talks about is basically togetherness. So in China they use sort of more of a flatter structure, and the head, the chairman, is what some businesses call him, who would be the head of the flat structures. There might be 8 to 10 departments, and they all kind of work individually, but they're all working towards a common goal. And each department kind of has its own leader, kind of allowing them to work with and feed off of, while the leader kind of takes what's going on in that department back to the chairman. Communication styles from leaders in China can be seen as indirect, and what that means is the leaders sometimes, if employee, they have some truth about an employee that might hurt, they'll soften it. So sometimes they'll say things to an employee kind of to get their point across, but they won't say it as blunt and as straightforward as they might think it, because they know it might destroy face and it might embarrass the employee, and that's not their main objective in leading a company in China. Also, another thing about, or another characteristic of indirect communication would be if a leader creates small talk before maybe a business meeting, and that could be just to strengthen the relationship between employers and the authority or the leader of the group. And then lastly, criticism. If anyone has criticism of the leader of the group or of anyone in the group, that's kind of withheld, and that's kind of not talked about, because again, that might be seen as going against the grain or trying to destroy face. And that's just some of the that's just ways that they communicate over in a business setting. They're not real direct and they're not real upfront. They're kind of they kind of create small talk, and they kind of tell people what they want to hear while also implementing what they need to hear. And then lastly, leaders take longer to make decisions, because they like to make sure every party is benefiting equally. So they like to take into account all parties and making sure that everybody who is going to be impacted by the decision that is about to be made has a fair and equal opportunity to benefit from the decision being made. And like I said earlier, the structures that they use are flatter structures, because it creates autonomy, allowing each individual department or unit to have some sort of like separate identity, but at the end of the day, they're all working towards a common goal. And when understanding the leadership styles, it's also very important to understand how those styles or how the culture in China is ran and how those styles of leadership strengthen the culture on China. So when observing the culture on China, one can see a real family-oriented, as I said earlier, we sort of theme that will be going on here. So each person in China is encouraged to be an active player in society. So what that means is people in China, it is seen that one should not think about how they can move forward individually, but how they can move the community forward. So if someone has an idea and they feel that it'll give them an advantage over others, that's not seen as a cultural norm for China. Instead, they should find a way to kind of recreate that idea and push the whole culture forward. Also, the rights of families and communities collectively supersede those of the individual. So a family comes first, basically in China. They want people to really believe in a family style living. And like I said, and I know it sounds repetitive, but that's really what they believe in. They believe in the we over the me. And I know, like I said earlier, a lot of people feel like the Chinese culture doesn't allow you to be yourself and doesn't allow you to be an individual. But I mean, if you think about it, they kind of want what's best for the greater good. So they want people to be selfless. They want people, like it says up here, they want you to abide by roles, because roles promote unity. When everybody's following the same roles and abiding by the same laws, it promotes unity and it shows selflessness. So they like for people in their culture to be able to not show selfishness and not put themselves above the group. And then lastly, like I said, just as the Confucian concept of harmony, working together in groups is a cultural norm out there. Before they hire you in a business out in China, they want to build a relationship with you, and they hire you off a relationship, because when they hire you, it is like seen to be for a lifetime. They don't plan on firing you in a week or firing you in a month. They plan on keeping you there for a lifetime and basically becoming a family with you. So all those leadership styles and cultural characteristics kind of go hand in hand in how they run their business and how they live their day-to-day life. So when visiting China, just understand that it's seen as more of a we culture. So everything you do and everything you think about doing should be cultivated and thought of how to push the community forward as a whole and not just put yourself above others. And talking about that, we'll move on to a couple questions. So just to see, just to make sure we're all following along, we're all understanding, what are 3 key factors leaders in China should possess? I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds, maybe 45, just to think about 3 key factors that we talked about a little bit ago that some leaders in China should possess. All right, I see I got some thinkers back there. So if anybody said working in harmony, understanding how to say face or what face is, knowing how to communicate indirectly, or learning how to work autonomously, but also together, is that would be correct. So like we discussed earlier, factors of leadership in China, they like to work together. They're indirect with communication. Flatter structures create autonomy within a company, and then saving face is huge for them. Not embarrassing each other, not putting one above the group, and not thinking selfishly is huge for them. Another question I have before we get into a activity is, what are some positive cultural characteristics within the Chinese community? So what are some characteristics that they see that they accept over there in the community? And I'm going to give you guys another like 30 to 45 seconds just to think about that. All right, so I'm sure that was a little bit easier just because it was a little fresh on your mind. And basically, if you said anything that has to do with cohesion, togetherness, we over me, or just any type of selfless act, then you're on the right track, and you're on the right road to fitting into the Chinese culture, I guess we could say. So with understanding some key factors of leadership and understanding some of the cultural norms out in China, I want us to break into groups of 3 to 4. It's going to be a little fun activity. And I want one person in the group to take the lead of the group. I want one person to act as the leader or act as the head of the department, we could say. And the objective is to come up with one way to enhance the iPhone. So I want us to kind of get into a business setting and enhance the iPhone. And I'm going to give you guys about 4 to 4.5 minutes to come up with a collective idea of how to enhance the iPhone. Go. I know, I'm sure everybody's working hard and collectively somewhat. I hope so. But a couple of things just to take into account while performing some sort of business meeting or product enhancement like this, and assuming we are in under a Chinese in a Chinese culture. Excuse me. I just want to ask you guys a few questions. Did the leader take into account each party when making a decision? So, I mean, a lot of you guys should have a decision, maybe just for the sake of the activity, but in the actual Chinese culture, one may not have made a decision yet just because it takes time, like I said before, to really take into account everybody being impacted, and if everyone is benefiting equally. Also, did anyone show individualism? And I know this is sometimes hard for us because this is the culture we're used to, but did anybody in the group maybe shout out an idea or try to push their idea over others instead of kind of collectively talking as a group in harmony and coming to an understanding about what might benefit, what enhancement might benefit everyone equally? And then lastly, as I said, did the group work in harmony? So were there any opinions that maybe didn't go with the group or went against the grain? Because like I said, in Chinese culture and leadership, going against the grain is seen as trying to be a show-off and not saving face. And if you learned anything, saving face is one of the most important characteristics in being not only a leader in China, but living within the culture out there in China. And then with that being said, I want to thank you guys for learning a little bit about the leadership and culture of China. I'm going to pass it on to Kia, who's going to talk to you guys about some cross-cultural experiences.
Hi everybody, my name is Kia. So you just got a briefing of pretty much the leadership and the culture in China. I know Jawan was hitting hard and hitting home on harmony. That is a big component within the Chinese culture because of their Confucius ideals. When we think about cross-cultural experiences and how it is effective in our business atmosphere, you want to think if you're trying to start a venture, hypothetically speaking, internationally. We want to be well-rounded in the scope of knowing about different cultures and how they affect our growth and our production. We think about exporting and importing and how we use various countries for our imports and our exporting. So I'm going to give you guys a little briefing into that and help you understand it a little bit more. So one thing to note, and Jawan touched on this a little bit in the beginning, is keeping an open mind. When you're dealing with cross-culture, you're dealing with different diversities, you're dealing with different ideals, you're dealing with different customs and norms. And how that is effective in business is how that generates success. So when we think about China, I want you to kind of negate yourself from thinking of the strict communists who abort everything and tell you you can't do anything and you're always in trouble by the government, because that's not all of China. I want you guys to be open and think of yourselves and put yourselves in the shoes of those in this country. So let's talk about it. Why is it important to business? Well, it keeps the leader informative. When you have the ideals of various cultures or customs and norms within your mind, and you have that diversity within your workplace, it generates a more expanded organization. And with that, you get to experience different ideals that you probably wouldn't foster in your mind just by your own cultural norms, and you wouldn't find as like a relevant solution. Also understanding. It's important in business that we understand that everybody is not the same. We're all different in some aspect, some shape or form. And by integrating different cultures within itself, you get to understand pretty much where people's ideologies come from. Are we going to, we can use Jawan's example of the iPhone enhancement, okay? With understanding the premise of China and kind of their experience and the technological advances, could they give us any insight as to helping us enhance the iPhone? Or can we, from our experience of using our cellular phones and our technological advances, give them insight as well? So with integrating cultures together, you kind of begin to comprise ideals that normally wouldn't manifest if you didn't have that type of exposure. Another important factor that's important in business is acceptance. When we think of cross-culture, we have to be accepted. We have to be, I want to say open, but we have to be able to sit amongst each other in a room, in a setting, and understand that, okay, we may have different backgrounds, but when we come together and we cultivate this ideal or this new innovation, we can come to a consensus based on our experiences, and in turn shed some enlightenment on each other based on what we do in business. So those are typically the importance of, or the three factors that are important in business. So I want to talk to you guys and kind of do a scenario with you, kind of similar to what Jawan did. And what we're going to do, we're going to kind of briefly go through a cultural experience. I want you guys to kind of get a feel, get loose. I want you to separate yourselves and get into groups. This is a fun activity. It's nothing strenuous or anything like that, but it's just going to keep you aware and kind of give you the way of putting yourself in their shoes. So we're going to go to the next slide. So I want two groups of 3 or 4 members. depending on how many people are in the classroom right about now. And I want you to break off into two groups. One group is going to be from the United States, and the second group is going to be from China. The scenario is one of you is the manager and the others are workers, right? As a manager, you are looking to improve upon your company's product, which we're going to say, hypothetically speaking, is an Apple MacBook Pro, all right? You're trying to devise something, an innovative enhancement that's going to make that MacBook Pro sell out of the markets right now, right? From the United States, think about autonomy and individuality while talking amongst your members. So the people who are, my group that's going to be from the United States, I want you guys, the manager specifically, to kind of conduct the meeting in the mindset of letting people bring out their own ideas. Let people be creative. If they want to write on the board, they can. If they want to write on a piece of paper, they can. But let them be expressive in the culture that we have. That's typically how our meeting boards are conducted. And for my group that's in China, think about harmony and teamwork. No one person is above the other. So with that being said, you guys are going to focus more so on coming up with a consensus rather than just simply, okay, well I have an idea and I have an idea, so here, let's share this. You all are going to talk amongst each other and you're all going to agree upon what do you think is the best route to take. And think of it as a unity factor, okay? No one person is better than the next, but you all are going to collaborate with each other and devise a solution that's beneficial, all right? Now, you guys have 5 minutes to prepare your new innovative idea. So right now, I'm going to go off screen for 5 minutes. I'll let you guys kind of talk amongst yourselves. Remember, stay involved, be invested. You guys are going to assimilate yourselves as if you're in China and as if you're in the United States, all right? So I'll give you time to kind of get together and think of some new innovative ideas. All right, guys, and your 5 minutes is about to be up. So continue talking and conversing because I'm going to be still talking to you guys. So now that you guys kind of generated some ideas from each other, the United States, you guys have your ideas. China, you have your ideas. Now I want the leaders selected in each group to now meet together, and we want you guys to simulate a negotiation process. So, the United States, you're trying to open up, you're trying to sell your venture or your idea, your product to China, right? So we're going to take kind of how our culture fosters negotiations and business strategies and try to convince this culture to accept. And China, do the same. When you're negotiating with them as well, you want to continue to keep your feel, your norms, your morale. Don't change, okay? And I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes to kind of converse with each other and try to convince one another of what you are going to do in order to promote this product, okay? Okay guys, so we should be kind of concluding right about now, just for the time's sake. So, as you guys are talking, one thing I want you to note and kind of realize with having limited information about kind of how the Chinese culture is when you're negotiating, majority of the time, Chinese managers or leaders will be silent while you're talking to them. This is not an act of ignoring your thoughts or your ideals, but it's simply listening, trying to take in consideration what you're trying to offer them and give them. Because one element that they do kind of take into consideration is trust. If they don't trust you, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to do business with you. So it is up to you to understand how are you going to gain their trust, and then how are you going to respectively kind of denote what you want to do in terms of enhancing this product. Another factor that is essential to this is understanding that in China, the decision-making process is a lot longer than what you're used to in the United States. We can get into a collective group right now, and I could ask you guys, okay, name 5 elements that can be changed in technology. And you could right off the bat answer those questions just off of your experiences. But in the Chinese culture, they like to break down the product or the plan and see from an in-depth perspective what can really be fixed. And I think this is kind of baffling in a sense, because when you get over here, you're so quick to, hey, I got an idea and this is how we're going to get to it. And that's not the way it is. So in understanding kind of the dynamics that underline how their culture operates, you'll then become successful. And I know I don't want to get too technical with you guys, but think of China as, in terms of leadership, theories Y/Z. So theory Y are managers that believe that their workers actually are motivated through little structure, but are pushed to do better for themselves within that organization by simple rewards. So theory Z is kind of emulating the sense of, okay, well, I see that my group is able to be productive, but they're more motivated through teamwork and kind of comprising ideas together. So when we think of China, we think of this theory Z. We think of teamwork, unity, going together, and kind of then collectively comprising an idea. When we think of the United States, we kind of relate them back to a theory Y, which is involving individuality, kind of expressing yourself, and using your insight and your ideologies, and then coming together as a group. So those are kind of the differences between the two. But ultimately what I want you guys to learn from my section is the value of trust and understanding and acceptance, okay? When we're moving our ventures internationally, we have to cultivate other cultures, but we have to be open-minded when we're doing so. And with no further ado, I'm going to pass this on to Cameron, and he's going to talk to you guys about some comparisons, okay?
Hello y'all, my name is Cameron like Kia said. And before I start, I want y'all to just get up a little bit and have a little stretching session. I know we've been talking for about 30 minutes and you've been working. So just get up, stretch your legs out, and have your brain relax a little bit for about 20 seconds. Stretch your arms, stretch them legs, relax a little bit. Alright. Yeah, open the minds back. We're about to focus up again. For this topic, we're going to talk about the comparisons from China versus the United States. And the first topic I want to talk to you about is currency. The currency difference, every time you go to a different country, most of the time there's obviously a difference in currency of what they use versus what you'll be used to in America. And the difference in America is for every $1, it is 0.16 yuan. So that's 16 cents yuan for $1 that you have. And we're going to do a little activity later on for you to kind of work through that. And then for the government, there's a totally different government there. They are the Republic of China. So their elections are more of a hierarchical system instead of a democratic system that we're used to. They don't have all the local elections that everybody can vote on. But you go to the voting poll on like November 11th every year to go vote and give your democratic vote. So kind of like the lower class doesn't get the same voting. They don't get the same power of vote that they would in the United States. And with that being said, if you do not like something that the government does or a business does or whatever, you have to remain calm over there in China, that you can't just go out and protest. I know like after Donald Trump was elected, they had the big women's march in Washington, D.C. That would not have flown by in China. You could have got arrested or been sentenced to prison if you were in China. So the biggest thing is to remain calm, and if you don't like what's going on, just remain calm. Don't protest. Things will get better. You'll adjust to the culture more and more. And I know a big thing is that in America, we do not like to have people ask us personal questions about our family, our marriage, our age, especially age. A lot of people don't like being asked what age they are. But in China, the people will ask you personal questions just to try to get a comfort level with you and try to understand some similarities so they can talk to you and feel more comfortable with you. So that's something to be aware of when you go to China. Also, family planning in 1979, I think, they passed a little act over there in China that you can only have a certain amount of family members per family, obviously. And generally it's about 2 children per family. Sometimes you can get up to 3, but that's only certain circumstances. So that's real different in America, because I know in the reality TV show 19 and Counting, the Duggars have 19 kids and they're still going. And that is not how you do business over there in China. You have to plan your family, know how many kids you have, and make sure that you do not go over that a lot of time or things to go bad. Dining, as we've been talking about, a lot of Kia and Juan mentioned, is harmony. And Chinese people, in the culture of China, they really feel like dining really brings a harmonious feeling to your body, especially when you have what you're eating with your family and friends. So they kind of like to eat at a round table. And with that being said, the way that people would sit down at the round table will be the elders and seniors and all the important guests at the dinner. They will sit first, and then the children will go next. And then the other people, like the parents and all the other people that are still standing, will sit down. How I bet you could go around the park right now and go to an empty park in Hickory, North Carolina, or anywhere in America and see the empty park. That would not happen in China. Kids are always playing around in the park, playing all the games that they like to play. The two biggest sports in China are ping pong and badminton. That's a fun fact, so you might want to learn that for a little later. And movies, it's kind of hard to tell the different. Hollywood has a struggle to kind of figure out what movies that will go well over there. There's some movies that they think will bode well in China, but they don't turn out in the box office like they think they will. But then there's also movies that just blow up in China. Sorry, like Furious 7. The Hollywood didn't know how well it would do in China, but it blew out the box offices in China. So that's kind of some of the comparisons to the United States. Next, we're going to go to the activities. And for the first activity, if you take $150 to China, how many yawns would you have? We'll give you about a minute to decide, come up with the math, calculations, and all that good stuff. Alright, guys, if you came up with 24 yawns, then you were correct. I'm proud of you. You know how to do a little math, do a little word problems. The next one we're going to do is, I forgot to mention this, but in China, there is no minimum wage requirement. The government does not set a minimum wage requirement. Each city has their own set standard for a minimum wage, which is different than American, where we have a set dollars, which is $7.25. So the minimum wage in Alangzhuan is 11 yuan per hour. What is the minimum wage in US dollars? So you have to convert that to US dollars and then figure out the minimum wage. I'll give you another minute or so to figure out that calculation. Alright, if you came up with one yawn and 76 yawns, then that is correct. I know that's kind of shocking because, like in America, a lot of people complain that 7.25 is kind of low for America, and I know they tried to raise the minimum wage a couple years ago to about $10. Obama did $10 because he thought that's what the American citizens was worth for a minimum wage. But as you can see, that's really low. Is not even $7.25 over there. So you can see the kind of difference in from China to American, the way they do their work. That's why factories, people are always shocked of how little factory workers make over in China. The next question that we have is, what are the two most popular sports in China? I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer that one. Alright, if you said badminton or ping pong, then you are correct. I know Yao Ming is a little upset that he didn't get basketball a little more popular while he was playing in the NBA. But that's still badminton and ping pong. The last question I have for y'all is who sits down first at dinner, and you will choose all that apply. The first option is important guest. The second option is seniors and elders. The third option is children. And the last option is parents. Y'all can talk about that a little bit, see what differences and similarities y'all come up with. I can give you about 30 seconds as well. Alright, if you said that important guests and seniors and elders both sit down at the same time, then you are correct. The children will sit next after those two, and then the parents will sit after all that. And that's all I have for the comparisons for the United States and China. And if Jawan and Kia would come back up and give the overview of the whole presentation, that would be lovely.
So, guys, as Cam said, we're just going to give you, guys, basically an overview of the presentation and maybe some key points if you didn't get all of that, because we know it was a lot of information. Just some key points and of things you should take with you and things not to forget maybe when going over to China. And for my part, which was the leadership and culture, some of the biggest things just to understand is one, to save face. Like we all mentioned basically in all parts of our presentation is not to try to show off or embarrass anyone because that is not accepted in the culture over there in China. Like Cameron said, if you're trying to protest, it's better off going unsaid just because, you know, consequences and repercussions will be paid. And it kind of goes into like the indirect communication style that they have out in China, like I said, in a business setting or maybe sometimes when communicating with someone, being blunt or harsh or rude is not the best way to go about that. But finding a way to soften that comment is always best. Another thing is learning how to be autonomous, but within maybe a company or a larger group, but learning how to work together within maybe a smaller department or a smaller group. Harmony is key. Remember that in China, harmony is key. And then also timely decisions. Don't rush to conclusion. Don't jump to conclusion. Don't make an assumption. Take your time to actually think about, you know, everything that goes into the decision that you're going to make and why you're going to make it, and make sure that everybody who will be impacted by your decision is represented equally. And that's kind of all I have from my leadership and culture part. And just remember, we over me. We over me.
And just from my standpoint, cross-cultural experiences in the business, we want to remain open-minded to the new culture that we're experiencing, regardless of your background or your personal experiences. And also understand that trust is one of the major components in China, and especially doing business. You want to be able to articulate yourself in a manner that is both respectful, but also that doesn't undermine what their cultural norms are. We want to stay in constraint of pretty much respecting each other. And lastly, being acceptive. And at this point in time, when you're going internationally with your ventures, whether it's a nonprofit or just an expansion of your organization or company thus far, you want to make sure that you're acceptive of the culture that you're diving into, because it is going to be different from what you're used to. And try to do your research, try to think of etiquette, try to think of kind of the language that they speak, and also the motions and emblems that they use in nonverbals. Those things are important when we're factoring in how to be influential in business. So thank you guys for hearing my part, and I'm going to give it over to Cameron.
Hey, I got two parts that's really key that I said was the whole currency thing. Really understand how much your dollar goes to in China. Like I said, $1 is 16 cents of a yuan. And then the last but not least is stay calm when things don't go your way. Like everybody else was saying, that kind of China's really big on harmony. And thank y'all for listening to our presentation. Hope y'all learned something and enjoy your trip to China.
Thank you.